Superintendent Update, our chance to talk with Superintendent Eric Conti about what's going on with the school system and what might be coming down the line. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, always.
So we are taping this on Tuesday morning today. We had a snow day.
Yes.
So there's always a lot of discussion before, when snow is predicted on Facebook about whether the schools will be closed, whether they should be. Just sort of go through the process that you have to determine, whether or not to cancel school or not.
Well, I think like everything else, the extreme storms are actually relatively easy. So if the governor declares a state of emergency, we cancel school. So I'm saying that's kind of straightforward. It was storms like the one today that are the most problematic because we're right on the line. There wasn't snow visible in the morning. You're predicting sort of what's going to happen in the future. And there are some things that are easier than others. So the process basically starts, relatively early. Starts, I think I get up around 4. And I always remind myself that as sometimes groggy as I am, the DPW crews, the park and rec crews have been out all night. So those guys are the real, hard workers. I usually call Kevin Keene, who's in charge of the cleanup crews, and ask him the condition of the roads. And he gives me sort of great firsthand advice. Like I said, he's usually up all night working. So, and then I start to call my colleagues or text my colleagues from neighboring towns, and just see what they're thinking, and we sort of collaborate, and we try to make the decision, or at least I try to make the decision by 5 and get the call out by 5:15. We have teachers who are some commute from a ways, and they leave very early, so try to make sure I can get them the call before get the call done before they're on the road. Again, if there's an obvious storm and we can make the call the night before, that's always easiest. But today wasn't one of those. And now, coming in today, it wasn't honestly about getting everyone to school. It was about getting everyone home from school.
Yeah, because you have to think about the whole storm, not just the morning commute.
Right, and a delayed start is easier than a shortened day, an early release. An early release tends to be much more problematic, and I wouldn't do an early release, again, unless there were a real problem. If I coordinated that the night before, so working parents especially could coordinate leaving work early, then that might be something. But again, we had limited tools today. Again, I wasn't worried about the kids getting in. I was worried about sending them home. And then a lot of my colleagues, and we are right on that snow, sleet, ice, rain line, right on the line. We're closing, so it just seemed to be we would collaborate on today. Again, not my first choice to close, but I think we were kind of stuck today.
Yeah, I've noticed, I know that you have a tendency to be open if possible. Like you like to get everybody out as early as possible in the summer, and not have snow days if you can avoid it.
Yeah, and we go a long time already, and I think that the routine of school is important. 5-day weeks are sort of important. We haven't had those in a little while. November's a tough month as it is.
Sure. So
I think we are always looking to do that. Last few years we've gotten snow later in the year, February and even March, but December's been relatively snow-free. So this year we have now 2 days already in December, so we build in 5, but it makes me nervous about January, February coming up. So so we'll see.
Let's hope it's not a repeat of a few years ago.
Yeah.
So we are coming into the winter break. What does that mean I know for the students it just means some time off, but what does it mean for the school administration? Do you guys also just get a week off, or are there things that you do?
Well, again, we all celebrate some sort of holiday during that time.
Yeah,
so typically people take some time off, but we're usually working, and it's budget time for us. So we're starting to work on next year's budget and putting a lot of time and energy into that. It's I think it's a sort of a natural break in the calendar year, and high school courses are sort of transitioning from first semester to second semester, and it's again, it's a historic break in the year, so it's hard to keep everyone focused, because obviously this week everyone's thinking about break, and there's a lot of good things that are happening as well. So.
Yeah, and so you mentioned my next topic of conversation, which is I know that the budget is starting to sort of get formed. I know you're scheduled to be at Ways and Means tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Just sort of what are some of the big picture takeaways of what you're looking at right now?
Again, the big picture takeaways is Burlington, the community of Burlington funds their schools very generously. So that's the context in which we make conversations when we start talking about it. But people in Burlington are also used to lots of services and programming when it comes to schools. So it takes the resources that we have in order to maintain sort of the programming and quality teachers and everything else that we try to put forward for folks. And those are the conversations we have. We work with the town's financial team, which includes the town administrator, the assistant town administrator, selectmen, Ways and Means Committee, school committee. And what I appreciate about the process in Burlington, it's never about just next year. It's always about next year, but there's always a longer term conversation and projection because they want to make sure the town remains financially healthy. Right. We don't just do 1 year at a time. And so I think we all have to compromise when that's the case, and we don't get everything we want sort of in the moment in the next year. But I think over time, like I said, the community has always supported schools, and again, we have no complaints in the amount of funding that we get from the community.
Excellent. And is anything sticking out as far as like possible capital projects that you are seeing, or is it still too early for that? Or?
No, we have lots of capital needs. So I think we've spoken before. We essentially have 3 of our schools that have been relatively recently updated, and 3 of our schools that need significant update. I think since we last spoke, the state has rejected our high school renovation, so for the 8th time. So now we have to rethink our strategy in terms of getting state funding for a building. More than likely, we'll change our priority from the high school to an elementary school.
Right.
And then that process takes place over the coming months, and our application is due in April. And then they notify us again a year from now about that project. And so that's where we are, but that doesn't preclude the high school still needing renovation or Pine Glen and Fox Hill needing work. So we're again working with the town's financial team, including sort of Treasurer Brian Curtin, who I forgot to mention when we talked about guideline, but we're working on that because it's going to take both a combination of local dollars and I hope some state dollars to get our schools where they need to be.
Yeah, so last time and recently on an in-depth, we had a long discussion about the school, elementary school situation. And since that time, you had a school committee meeting where you opened up, for public comment, and a lot of people showed up for that.
They did.
What was, your general takeaway from what, parents and residents are thinking?
Well, people showed up in person at the meeting, which you saw, and then we also got over 500 comments to some information in the survey that we put out. So. And for us, that's a relatively high level of response. And I mean, if you didn't observe the meeting, I think the predominant opinion expressed at the meeting for the people who were there was wanting to maintain their 4 elementary school structure. Not combining Pine Glen and Fox Hill on the Fox Hill site, not putting 2 schools on the Fox Hill site, and a lot of concerns with that. I think people really identify with their neighborhood school, and I think that's occurred over time, and I think that's actually a good thing. And I think there are also some concerns about concentrating that many kids up that part of town would change the traffic patterns and do some other things up and around that part of town. We need now some concrete answers, because I think what's going to fuel those decisions when they're ultimately made are going to be all of those factors and cost and sort of everything else. So we want to make sure we have all the factors that are out there when we move forward. And even when working with the state, we just have to identify 1 school anyway as the first step in the process. Even if we were to combine or do other things, that whole process is initiated by identifying a 1 school priority, because that's how the state asks you to go through the process.
Yeah, and also, I know that school committee member Christine Monaco brought up the possibility that the Pinelands site might not even be feasible for a rebuild because of wetland issues or something. Again,
I don't have that area of expertise. I think we need to bring someone in to help us do that, whether it's there are environmental factors, whether it's the abutters, whether it's offsets. Again, all those things that are out of my area of expertise, we need to bring someone in and we need to have those questions answered. I think the Fox Hill site is the largest piece of property and sort of the easiest one to build on, and I think that's what people are gravitating towards. But again, we need information, and then we'll make the best decisions when we have the information that we need.
Right. And just to reiterate something that you tried to make very clear at the meeting, this is early stages of this process.
It is. But again, we have another, I think I said at the meeting, we don't know about the high school. Now we have that piece of information, and that's
Right.
going to drive us now towards, again, changing our statement of interest to an elementary school. But which elementary school and sort of what's the better, which provides us the better chance of state support. We have to work through that in the next few months. And like I said, the state's not going to, we can't put replacing 2 elementary schools in our application. We only can put 1. Even if we were ultimately to combine the 2 schools, that whole process starts with identifying 1 school that needs to be replaced as a priority. So that's what we're going to do next.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions I had. Is there anything that I missed or anything that you'd like to add?
No, I just honestly, 2019, I just want to close out. This will be our last conversation. So with gratitude, I think our teachers are working really hard. I think there's great things happening in our classrooms when I'm in the buildings. Our principals are second to none in terms of what we're doing. And this time of year with all the weather, I just want to make sure I thank, again, our custodians are also here really early, clearing the sidewalks, sanding, our maintenance crews. Everyone's working really hard to make sure students have a positive experience. And so I want to close out 2019 by expressing my gratitude to everyone who works for the school district, and they've been working incredibly hard, and I'm just so honored to be superintendent here. So that's how I'd like to end 2019, and I'm looking forward to a really productive and exciting 2020.
Well, I think that's a great way to end it, and I wish you all the best for your holidays as well, and thank you for coming in.
You and everyone at BCAT too.
Thank you.
All right, take care.